I do like the idea of being able to stream to multiple platforms. It just makes sense to me. Like, why would you just put it onto one platform? Excuse me. Does anyone have any suggestions that aren't crazy expensive to stream to multiple platforms? Like right now, I'm just using the Stream Element stuff, which seems to work. Most has in the past worked quite well. It's just every so often it seems to screw up, and there's not a lot you can do with it. So I just wonder if it might be better to have a stream from here that goes to somewhere else that then restreams it to the various different platforms. Does anyone have a system that they use that they like for that? Mm, right. I'm wondering about how coders are so much more efficient just using pre-canned code like they're copying it off Stack Exchange. I'm like, what terrible garbage must you be writing? Well, I know that I'm writing some terrible garbage with the chat GPTs and stuff. I'm trying out Perspective right now. Perspective? No, Perplexity AI, and which I quite like. I've got to say, I love using it as being able to use it as a search platform. But here's the thing: in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking like, what's it making up? Like I definitely check the like if I'm doing the email of awesomeness, and excuse me, and I'm looking things up, I'll check those links that it gives you because I just want to make sure that I'm getting the right stuff. And inevitably, there are definitely sometimes I feel like I've spent more time playing with Chat GPT than I have with actually trying to write the thing I should be writing. If I just sat down and wrote it, it would probably be further along. I'm constantly changing the systems that I use, or lack of systems that I use, um, to try to find a way to efficiently do the things I want to do in the week. And that's a few things now. I want to get my email of awesomeness out every week. Again, just tech and science and engineering and art and just cool stuff that I see during the week, and I just like to share with people and noodle on about it a little bit. So there's the email of awesomeness. It's also that's part of getting me off of all these platforms as well. So there's that. My I'm a Genius chats, which Agna has been amazing at organizing for me. Frankly, I mean, I just don't think I'd get my shit together to get that stuff happening without her. And then I'm really debating this new idea. Um, well, of course, we've got the. What am I talking about? I've also got Damn Dirty Abe's with the Lance Gimpy God car, which is really fun too. Like I mean, it ended up being a political debate the other day, which is just like, something I don't normally participate in, but it's just sort of the way things went, and I guess it's kind of the way the world's going right now. But it was just an interesting, different approach to streaming that I've not done before, and it's just I feel like this is it's just kind of Lance's show. The Damn Dirty Abe's. I want him to have as much input as I do on this stuff as well. So see where it goes. And it's really funny to see how we as things come up, I go oh, and he's like jumping in both feet, and so it's kind of an interesting dynamics. It's kind of a fun one. So I'm hoping you to continue doing that. So we've got email of awesomeness, Damn Dirty Abe's. I'm with Genius, and then now because I haven't already don't get enough stuff done, I want to do something related to film, but I don't want it to be about acting. I don't want to do reviews. I don't want to talk about the icky film industry. I want to talk about all the stuff that made me fall in love with film, which was like the cameras and the VFX and the how they made this and how they did that, and and what are the future tech? Like, what are what is AI capable of doing now? Are there good short films out there, or feature films being done with this stuff? Unreal Engine, just all those kind of things, like makeup effects, like just in my mind the nerdy side of film, the science, technology, engineering, arts, and math side of the future of film type thing. And I got to come up with a title for it. I don't even know. I might just try it and see how it goes down. But I feel like I loved acting. I never liked being an actor, but I always loved the acting part. I love being on set and around all those cool tech and lights and people with all these different backgrounds and stories, and it's just a fun place to be. How do I share that now that I'm old and infirm? So that's sort of the goal there, is to try to figure out what to do with that. But in order to do that, I feel like we want to stream to as many platforms as possible. I follow Leo Laporte and have for, well, since the Screensavers days. I listen to Twitch every week. I listen to Security Now. I listen to This Week in Tech. I've now become addicted to, it used to be This Week in Google. They've now called it Intelligent Machines. You should definitely check that out. It's a great podcast that basically focuses on AI now. But even then, they go off on tangents and talk about politics, and it's a fun bunch. So I got a lot of those Twitch programs that I really like. And believe me, I don't want to start a Twit TV. That seems like way too much organizational work for my little brain. But I would like to have a few different types of stream. Like, I'd love to be able to do like a film-based one, and then a accessibility, politics, and chaos side of stuff, and then these wonderful Line with Geniuses, which I'm really going to focus more on the scientists and the engineers, I think, because I just worry. I worry about getting. I don't want to get into we're interviewing corporate people all the time. To me, it's more about the pure science and the pure engineering side of these things. So I think that's where I'm probably gonna go with that. But what's nice about that is that means any of these other streams can contain some of the other stuff that I'm into as well, which seems basically everything. So there you go. The problem was on David not reading the whole conversation and jumping the gun. What am I doing? What have I done? I'm watching SGA now. Love the show. Yes. Official website for Tech Bandits. Thank you very much, Cal, for doing that. I think the issue is deeper because the cognitive offloading from novice coders means that they don't develop expert level skills. I don't know what we're going to do if we don't change something. Issues deeper than the cognitive offloading. I mean, that's a tough one. It's a tough one because I feel like I'm so old. How old are you? I'm so old that I remember when calculators were an issue. I remember when scientific calculators were an issue. Wait a second, that's not just a calculator. They just got used to calculators, and all of a sudden they could do, cosines and sines and algebra stuff. They really didn't know what to do with that either, because that information was suddenly provided in a very easy, compact, usable way. And the reality is the world embraces this stuff. It's like everyone complaining about the phones. I understand, absolutely. Kids need to learn how to use their technologies in a good way. When I was very happy to see my son the other day, he was working on his homework, and his phone, he put it at the very end of the sofa, which I like. Now, admittedly, he's got music going and videos, and while he's working, I don't know how he does that. But the reason why he put his phone far away was because he found he was instinctively just picking it up. So they have to learn how to do that. I think we need to learn how to, if these tools, I don't think anyone's taking these tools away in the near future. I think the genie's out of the bottle, so to speak. And while there are a lot of problems, I do worry about what's going to happen to our critical thinking skills, what's going to happen to our ability to process things on our own if these machines can just spit this stuff out. Well, what it means is we got to start figuring out how they can be integrated into the way people do their work. I mean, perfect example was this Coursera course I took with Google. So I took this it was the professional Google data analytics certificate course on Coursera. And yes, by the way, I have if you go to techbandits.org, there's a little sponsorship page thing or an affiliate link page, and you can click on a link there. And if you want to go check out the courses they've got, I will get some money if you sign up for that. That'd be fantastic. But that's not why I'm doing this. The Coursera course is entirely my own thing. I just felt like data. It's about data. It was about all the data stuff. And I'm a high school dropout. I don't have the math. I don't have a lot of the background that I think a lot of people would have going into this stuff. And as a result, I reach out for tools and tricks and things that I can use to help to fill the void in my understanding. One of the things I will do a lot with ChatGPT is to say, explain this to me as if I'm in grade 8, because grade 8 was when before the math got really crazy complicated, and it's just a good way to start any learning journey for me. So that's what I do. And I was doing that a lot with this course because they would talk about various different types of probability and statistics. They were very good at explaining most of them, but being the nerd that I am, I wanted to dig a little deeper on some of them. So I would use ChatGPT to help me out with that. And in many cases, I would use ChatGPT to help me write Python programs that could do some of the that could show me some of the examples of these probability and statistical analysis in action. I could see it in action on my own data, which is to me just helped me sort of fill in a lot of voids. And but it got to a point where I started feeling a little guilty, where I was like, wait a second, like, I mean, I'm not getting it to do the answers for me, but I'm helping it. I'm getting it to help format my messy notes into something that I can then submit as part of the Coursera thing. And every time you go to submit something, it says, make sure you're submitting your own stuff. And I was always like, well, it's my own stuff, but I did have ChatGPT help me format stuff and explain some stuff to me. And, so, typical, my British guilt. And then up pops this new module in my Coursera course, in this Google course. And it had taken me so long to finish this course that they'd actually updated it while I was doing it. And there was a whole section on how to use their Gemini AI to help with statistical analysis and data analysis. And it was basically a way of turning what I was doing into a process. Like, I was already doing this stuff. This was my own little invention, as I think it would be anyone's invention who has an interest in what they're doing. They find out what tools are available and they use them to help them learn what they need to learn and fill in those gaps. This was a whole module about how to do what I'd been doing anyways. In fact, going further than I would, it was actually saying this is how you would get it to present the data for you. And I wasn't doing that because I felt like that was like cheating somehow. But, they're saying like, no, as long as you know what you need to learn from this data, and you can follow up by understanding that the data has been cleaned properly and is being analyzed correctly, which ChatGPT was helping me with as well. As long as you know what to ask it and you understand enough to know what are right and wrong answers that it presents, why the hell wouldn't you? That's like using the calculator. So again, that's not a blanket statement to everyone saying we should have AI in education. I'll tell you an absolute opposite example of this, where I think is absolutely disgusting and incredibly concerning to me, was some friends at a university here, I won't name names, just got this little, sign up for the whatever AI thing. And what it is it wants you to load all of your essays, all of your writing, all of your notes into their system so that it can create a little chat bot to replace your, I guess, are they called TAs? With the assistant? Whoever the people are who assist professors in university? Didn't go, so I don't know. So that seemed really worrying to me, because I was like, okay, look, first off, that's a great way to quiz yourself if you've got an exam coming up. You dump all your stuff in, you get it to send you. I did that a lot with Coursera, where I was like, great, here are all of the notes that I took, or screen grabs that I took. Quiz me on this so that when my next quiz comes up, I know the answers. And I was getting like 100 every time, because I'm like, this is easy. ChatGPT was way harder on me. So fantastic system. But don't replace a human with that. It should be a combination. It should be making the professor and the TA's life easier. But don't jump to replacing them. Like, you need someone who's been in the lab, especially with something like biology or the sciences. You need someone who's been in there, got their hands dirty, who can give you a human perspective on the learning. But to immediately jump to this is a cost-cutting measure that means we don't need so many teachers anymore. We got customized learning for everybody. No, that's just, I think that's not even accelerationist. That's just, I think that's, what is it? Late stage capitalist or something. I don't know. Don't even start, Elizabeth. Um, so, all right, what do we got going on here? Maybe a behind the scenes series where you interview people on set, like camera editing, etc. I'm assuming you have automatic access to sets. LOL. Kaylin, I I feel like that feels too much like entertainment to me. That's the worst. That's probably the worst way of putting it. Uh, I don't want to do an entertainment show. I like I really want to do a show about the nuts and bolts of and also some looking into the future stuff. So I would like to talk to people for sure, and I think I will bring this. Look, I have a bunch of freaking brilliant, talk about geniuses. There's a million brilliant people I know who make film and TV in various different capacities, and I would happily bring them in and talk about some of this stuff, but I'm more interested for myself. Like in order to, I feel like whatever I got to do, it's got to be, I got to be passionate about it myself. Like this, the I'm a Genius stuff. I look forward to it every week. Like I love getting homework stuff to read in advance. I love digging into this stuff, and I just because and I just want to do it. I don't if there's one person watching or no people watch. I don't care. I'm doing it because, frankly, I find it absolutely thrilling. And I just feel so like lucky and honored, for the want of a better word, to be able, because of my silly pretending to be a genius on television, I'm now able to actually talk to these people. So I just, yeah, I really want to. I need to make sure that whatever, if it is going to be a film related thing, that it's got to be something that I'm passionate about. I toyed for a long time with doing a horror one where we just talked about horror movies, but I feel like the scope for that would be too limited for me. Because again, I want to talk about horror films, but I want to also talk about how they did the blood effects, how they did the horrible mutilations and the axe hits and the death sequences and the VFX and all. Like, I really am more interested in that than I am about talking about how the film was crafted and stuff. So that's kind of where I wanted to go with it. I just feel like I feel like the talking about the filmmaking process is it's pretty saturated. I think there's a lot of people doing that, and I think there's a lot of people who will do it far better than I can, who have far better access than I do. But I think the idea, again, what I like about the genius stuff is that I don't want to talk to Elon Musk or Bezos or anything. I don't want to talk to I want to talk to the people who are in the sort of the more pure science and engineering side of this stuff, or art, or whatever aspects come to mathematics, quantum mechanics, like that, the lovely, messy, crazy, hard to comprehend sciencey stuff. I would love to do the same thing, I think, with film and TV. So that would be where my interest is there. Double back at your organic. What's going on? Hand pink waving. What? Double back at you, organic. Interesting. Organic says you're amazing. Have a great day, everyone. Hey. Well, thank you for being amazing yourself. Lincoln, what do we got? The thing that I think has changed so much is that when you're using slide rules, pencil and paper, you knew there was probably some error in there, so you usually did it 10 to 20% to whatever you're calculating. You usually add it to 10 or 20% to whatever you were calculating. So we've got more specific because of these tools. Again, like, I don't think there's any harm in people doing stuff manually if they want to do it manually. And I think I think it's interesting to have an understanding of it. But I feel like I just feel like there is an initial concern, I think, by educators and by people in control, a fear of losing control to these technologies. And I think banning the use of AI in education, I think, will probably be fraught with problems. So I would much rather see a system where, instead of asking them to do an essay on Shakespeare that has been done a million times and that has the machine learning model has a billion examples of, and so can spit out something quite easily that answers the question, that we instead focus on the how the student's specific response to something. So instead of saying, give me write an essay on the use of sexual innuendo throughout Romeo and Juliet. I'm sure there's stuff out there, but if you ask a student to give their perspective on perhaps the top 10 the 10 most popular sexual innuendos in Romeo and Juliet, and which ones they feel are applicable to their lives now. What are things that speak to them, or that they thought were the funniest, or that they thought was the most progressive for the time, or just again asking their opinion, asking them to use their brains and to help train their brains to answer questions that can't be automatically answered by ChatGPT. I mean, I always struggle with the idea is like, do we need to be memorizing stuff in a world where everything is available to us right there and then? And people will say like, well, what if this, what if we run out of electricity or something? I mean, well, that I think is a bigger problem then. But I do think that we need to. I'm not saying we have to immediately embrace the technologies. I understand that there's going to be some, thank God we don't all have crypto textbooks at, what is it, like cryptocurrency textbooks or NFT textbooks or whatever the hell. Although that could work, actually. That could be an interesting way of doing it. If you could sell see, but again, the technology, it's I think if you're looking to find a good way to use it, then you can find a good way to use it. If you're looking for a way to screw people over or to hack the system somehow, you're going to find that too. So, yeah, I tend to be more about like, how can we take in this technology and make something of it? So, yes, you need to have content knowledge because it decreases cognitive load when doing critical thinking. You have to have content knowledge because it decreases cognitive load when doing critical thinking. Right. So there's a certain amount of stuff you need to know. But again, I would say that is that rote memorization though, or is that just a familiarity with the content? The more content you have, like I am able to learn at a much greater pace than I could before because of a few different things. One of them is YouTube. So I used to sit there with those learn to code in 21 days, and I would sit there for 21 days, usually like 18 days because I'd get impatient and want to finish. So I'd zip through a couple of them. But I could do that. I could absolutely sit there and just focus and page by page going through each thing to learn the process required to do these, to learn a program or to learn how to program or whatever it was, networking, any of the kind of stuff that I was interested in. And I was interested in everything. Well, it's not look, I think it locks in better with that for sure, the reading, but being able to see a video of someone actually just doing it is much more useful to me and is a much better way for me to understand what's going on, especially to start. Because I don't know who a good or bad teacher is for this stuff. I go on YouTube, I find someone who speaks to me, usually, as I say, at a grade 8 level. I go like, let's start there, and then I can work. Then I know I've got the basics, because I'm always worried about, do I have the base level understanding that I need? So once you've got that, then you build from there. But the videos, YouTube videos are fantastic for that. And then, of course, there's all the online content as well. I mean, I quite like manuals. I will actually sit down and I find myself looking through the documentation for Unreal while I'm doing it. I mean, it's funny, as a part of the learning module, like an extra optional piece was this article that was written about how to use nanites in Unreal Engine, which is just their way. Not just, it's amazing, but it's basically a much more efficient way of generating all of the models in a scene. It used to start from the back and work its way forward, and each element would have to be generated one after the other in most cases, and it would generate even the things inside it that never get seen, and like it just took a long time. The whole nanite systems just makes it a little smarter, a little more reactive, and you can then in real time move things around and stuff. So it's Unreal's Really ingenious little addition to what they're doing. But again, there was just an article about it, and so I read that. I enjoyed the process of I enjoyed that little blurb. But in general, I respond better to videos. And I'll do little screen grabs of whatever it is that I want to remember, and then I put that in my database. I can't. I have a terrible memory. I always had a terrible memory. I feel like I need a prosthetic memory, basically. And as I get older, that becomes much worse. For you young guns out there, luckily I can still remember lines, although I'm a little worried that I've stopped learning a lot of lines. So we'll see how that progresses. But my brain is, I think, quite tuned to the learning of lines. It's never been good at the knowledge stuff. It's always in one out ear, in one ear and out the other. So I have to take notes. It's generally better for me to write stuff down, honestly, but I just find it incredibly inefficient because I want to be able to search it later. I can write stuff down, I'll never look at it again. So the advantage of writing stuff down on a tablet or in some kind of a note keeping system allows me to then search it later. What I'm now doing a lot more of is I'll just take a snapshot of whatever it is that I'm like, oh, okay, there's a couple of pieces on probability. I'll just go snap, take that, put that in Google Photos. Google Photos, completely searchable. I can create little libraries of notes that way, and it's just been amazing. So that's definitely sped up the process. So as a kid, I go like, oh, so wait a sec, if they're not, I just put my hand in my soup. If you're not allowed to do that at school, okay, again, I understand. The distraction is impossible. How could you possibly want to learn about the history of Europe when there's 50 million video games and things competing for your attention online? I understand that maybe, at least certainly to start, it might be a good idea to keep those phones out of the way. But we have to integrate them back in, because once they get out in the real world, this is how they'll be working, right? When they're at a job and they need to remember something, they'll take a shot of it. And let's give them tools or smart ways of doing this. Let's teach them not to dox themselves in AI models by putting in too much information about themselves. They're not inherently secure, and they're not inherently correct. So I think these are the things we need to teach them. I mean, I feel a little bit guilty. I introduced my son to the AI chat stuff for his homework, because I was like, I would rather talk him through this process and try to explain to him, from what I understand, how it can be used. I remember school, and I remember them doing things like, you've got to rewrite that and make it look better, or whatever it was. Like you have to write multiple versions of it. And I just kept thinking, like, my hand hurts. Why am I doing this? Writing all this writing stuff. That did not help me at all. That was a waste of time, because it was old fashioned and already obsolete by the time I was doing it. I think that if there are tools available that can advance their learning and get them to a stage where they can do other things that are more exciting to them, then I think we should be using them. I'm not saying that they shouldn't be thinking, or they shouldn't be, critical thinking. We haven't had it. AI's only shown up in the last, 5 years or something. But maybe the last 2 or 3, actually, now I think about it. But we had problems with their critical thinking long before AI showed up. Now they can at least look up how to do critical thinking on AI. I mean, so I'm always a tech optimist. I'm a bit of I guess they'd call it an accelerationist, or, about this stuff. I feel like, great, what do we got? Let's make it, let's use it for let's do good. Let's do some good with this stuff. Content knowledge is an interesting one, Elizabeth, because biology, perfect example. And this is one of the reasons why I love the fact that we're using escape puzzle learning with biology up at U of T is that is that the whole concept behind that for me was what's the hardest science in my head to do escape puzzles with, and I would have thought biology, because I'm like, what, how do you, it's so squishy, how do you, I can't, they can't genetically engineer something in a puzzle, or can they? It becomes, it's turned out to be absolutely perfect for it, because biology requires this huge knowledge base of content. Like, there's so much terminology and things you've got to learn before you get into the cool stuff. In order to explain what you're doing, there's such a library of information you've got to have in your brain. But I think we're sipping from a fire hose here. Like, I think we're like trying to get a little tiny bit of information from a massive, like, just, a damned knowledge just pouring out. It'll just take our head off. I feel like we need tools to help point us in the right direction, and to tame all of this information that's out there. Because, we, when I grew up, we had 3 channels on TV. I mean, it was in England. It was like, what was it? A couple of BBCs and an ITV. No, ITV was new, I think, even back then. It was at Channel 4. I can't remember. Anyways, but again, like, I remember a time when that's all you saw. You wanted more information or behind the scenes stuff, you bought a magazine or read a book. That was it. And I'm not saying those are the good old days, because I think every technology that shows up, there is a concern that this is the end of youth, basically. I mean, TV was going to rot our brains. Video games, heavy metal music was going to melt. We're going to hell. I think there's a lot of reactionary stuff to things. I'm not saying that should be ignored. I'm just saying that I just think I would rather push forward with this stuff than sort of go like, whoa, okay, everybody stop. No AI in school. Now, let's figure it out. Because I think, honestly, the kids are already figuring it out. And if they're not figuring it out with us, they're figuring out how to get around whatever we're doing to stop them. So, all right, what else we got in here? I'm sorry, I'm completely ignoring the chats. Haha, you probably remember going through the library drawers just to find where the book was located. Even then, you were lucky if it wasn't checked out. Zidane, exactly. Point to Zidane, because this is my frustration. I learned how to use the Dewey Decimal System. What a freaking waste of time that is now, huh? That we literally had to learn. We had whole classes on how to use a card system and write cards out. It was like a freaking waste of time. Absolute waste of time. I learned all of the countries in Africa until the next week when they all changed. I mean, it was just, I'm going to have a little sip of a little here. Go. Information. The more you know about something, the further down you need to get into this stuff. But having a general understanding of stuff as well, I think, is important. I mean, I think you want to push the bounds of what. I think if you're too myopic in your focus, then I think you're missing out of the possibility of innovating some of that stuff. Because, if it's all the same people looking at things the same way, this is why diversity is so important. If you've got, nothing but white male nerds in a basement, you're only going to come up with white male nerd basement ideas. If they're all from the same economic background, if they're all from similar families or countries or schools, whatever. If you don't have a diversity of thought and different perspectives on things, good luck advancing things. That's the reason why half of our tech is unusable. What was unusable when computers first came out was because it was designed by nerds. It was designed by people who were so into this stuff. What you're getting into, and school is still the best place to do that. I mean, there's homeschooling and what you're getting into, and school is still the best place to do that. I mean, there's homeschooling and this. I mean, one of the things that I was so excited to see was that a lot, if not all, of the science fair contestants, these kids who were at the creme de la creme of these science fair projects in Canada, they were all educated from YouTube, and then getting in contact with the people who were making that content and communicating with them from there. So it was just So I feel that then the best contribution we can have is to inspire people into an interest that will then they can then pursue themselves. Because I think unless there's a passion for the stuff, unless there's that curiosity, you can't force people to learn anything. So we've had so. Um, all right, I'm going to read the research. It's one of those this feels right, is it right situations. I know very little about AI, really, except what I've observed personally and people that use it in PGR. I'm not sure what that is, but it's mostly for data analysis. It is it is wonderful for data analysis, but I would say that the biggest single use case for it in data analysis. Oh boy, here we go. And then there was the stroke. So for me was the cleaning of the data. I mean, a data analyst, data scientist, whatever level you're at, such a huge amount of your time is spent formatting the data, getting the data right, finding null values, things that are empty or incorrect data or blank data, or is what they call the data cleaning process, or where you're going through and trying to get that data into a form that you can actually use. That takes all the time. The actual processing, yeah, it's like a little bit of code, whatever. You can basically, Python, the Python code you can do with ChatGPT. A lot of this stuff, it's almost like natural language programming, where you can type in what you want it to do and it will basically do it for you. I mean, there's it's not perfect, but it certainly gets you along a lot of the way there. And then what I will also do is I'll get it to comment on each line of code, explaining it to me as if I was in grade 8. You can't be looking up what it means to what if then statements are, or what or variables. I mean, you can't be looking this stuff up all the time. But I think that part of that is that the more you use the stuff, the more you build a knowledge base to use with it. But for cleaning data, my God, Python, R Studio. I guess R is the programming language. R Studio is the interface for it. Those two things are fantastic in conjunction with something like ChatGPT or Perplexity AI, one of these machine learning models. It is a great way to teach yourself how to code. Look, it's not a replacement for a good teacher, but I would argue again, good teachers, YouTube. I mean, there's some fantastic lectures on computer programming for all levels on YouTube. That's how I've got all of my recent knowledge into this stuff. I mean, before it was these books, before it was the O'Reilly series. They, the ones with these woodcut, these ink drawings of animals generally on them. I had all of those. They were almost like dictionary like. That's how I would go and look up my code samples and stuff. Now, of course, then it was Google. Or Google, and then all the various different platforms there are for that. Stack Overflow and what is the Copilot one? GitHub, that kind of stuff. You'd get your code from the internet. You'd cut and paste little bits. You'd search out what you're looking for, and then you'd cut and paste it, and you'd sort of like Frankenstein together your code. Basically, all of that is handled for you now by the AI systems, and it's just extraordinary at that. I highly recommend, if you're doing data analysis, you got to be using AI. Honestly, I don't know how you do it without it. And also, we're just not meant to deal with that we're not meant to deal with that amount of data. It's very hard to keep it all in your head. And certainly for me, who has some focus issues anyways, whatever that non-neurotypical thing is, I will have AI walk me through the process. I'll say, like, break this problem down into steps that I can solve. And, if they don't work, that you've been given bad information, but it's usually pretty good at that kind of stuff. So, Elizabeth, are you using it at all? Caden says, I feel, there we go. The connection dropped as well. Have we lost it again? He doesn't look like he's aged a bit. Oh my God, Colds, I love you for that. But God knows I have. Have I ever? It's not a good way to learn to code, but it's a good way to get help with low-level coding project. MS has been very clear that if you don't already know how to code, you're not going to be able to use LLMs to do anything useful for them. Yeah, I mean, You need to look at this point. At this point, well, I'm going to say that even that's changed, I think, a bit too. I mean, it used to be you'd at least have to set up your IDE for programming. So you'd have to have your I don't know what IDE stands for, but basically your where you do your coding and you run your code. And I use the Microsoft's what is it called, Visual Code. I use that, Code Studio, whatever it's called. I use that. It's great, but again, paths, trying to figure out what the paths are and what this error message means and all that kind of stuff. I feed that stuff into ChatGPT all the time because I don't want to look up each one of those things. I want to know what it's there. It's so much faster doing that stuff. So you definitely needed a bit of a background. I don't think we're going to need it for long though, Elizabeth. I don't think we're going to need to know that for long because a lot of these models can also run the code for you within their own systems. So and just give you the answers. I mean, eventually you go like use Python to clean up this data and give me a list of the stuff you've changed. It'll do that. And that doesn't require any programming at all. Again, we're talking about like we're like trying to describe a bullet as it goes by us. I feel like this stuff is changing so quickly. Like Trump executive orders. By the evening, the world is completely different than it was in the morning. I feel it's the same way with the AI stuff. I cannot keep track. I need AI to track the progress of AI. There are so many models out there doing so many different things. But from an educational standpoint, of course, we need to look at the studies and we need to see what, how kids learn and how people learn and make sure that we're adhering to the hard science on this stuff. And I'm certainly not saying that we shouldn't be doing that. I just think we really need to be open to what how these systems can change. And also, I'm not a typical example of my learning is trivial. This is for my own edification. This isn't because I need it for a job. It's not because I need it for what I do in any way, shape, or form. So obviously none of this is mission critical stuff. But certainly as someone who is learning about a lot of different things, I would be incapable of doing it without some of these tools that are out there right now. And I'm really curious to see what else is out there. It's one of the reasons why I kind of want to do this film thing, because I want to see where we're at. It'd be really neat on a weekly basis to know the state of film, because we are getting very close to the point where we're going to be typing in a script and it's going to spit out a movie. Which I think terrifies a lot of people. It probably should terrify me as well, because I could be in it and I wouldn't even know. All right, I do a lot of work aligning industry expectations with dedication, and I'm working with people doing the long-term planning for industry, and they're saying it's not going to be helpful if you don't have the skills and they don't know what they're going to do if people rely on them so much they don't develop the tools. Yeah, I mean that's the kind of stuff we need to figure out. And I think that's a great point, Elizabeth. There are people working on AI projects at big tech companies. These are people working on AI project at big tech companies. Yeah, I'm not going to argue with that. I think that we need. I don't know how education moves as fast as the technology does. It will never will. Society can't move as fast as some of the technology will, and that's going to always be. There's always going to be, pains that come along with that. I know that, you can read quotes from Socrates or Plato complaining about kids only read books now. They don't actually have to listen or learn anything. They're just going to write it down, and then no one's gonna. Then how are kids going to learn? So I feel like I just want to make sure that we're coming at this stuff from your perspective, Elizabeth, which is like, okay, this is the knowledge we have. This is the stuff we know about how learning happens, and that we're adhering to that kind of stuff rather than to this sort of, oh my God, it's the sky is falling. This stuff is terrible. our kids are going to be, characters in a Wall-E movie, which I do worry about. Absolutely. I see it with myself. Not just my weight, but that's right. Reminds me, I gotta get on my rowing machine soon. I can't be talking here all day. I got some exercise to do. Actually, what time is it? Oh my god, it's 10 to 3. Okay, no, I should wrap up. Another fascinating chat. Thank you so much. If anyone's got connections to people that are doing cool things in that sort of engineering and science side of stuff, again, not as interested in the corporate side of stuff. But more about sort of just about the more pure sciences and technology side of stuff, and engineering. I'd love to hear it. So let me know. I'm David I Hewlett at gmail.com, or as I say, sign up for the email of awesome awesomeness. I think you will find it awesome. And so go to techbandits.org, check it out. I've also got a shop there, so buy a shirt or something. Help me out; it'd be great. And I'll do even more of this stuff then, hopefully. So I will let you chat. Thank you all. I'm gonna wrap it up, and oh god, now I gotta exercise. How much does that suck? This is the fun part. Normally I get to do this after my exercise. Today I have to do exercise after. That totally sucks. Just awesome, not awesomely awesome. It's awesome awesomeness is what it is, Anchoritis. It is indeed awesome. Thanks, everyone. Cal, thank you so much for being here and keeping us all in line. And all you wonderful nerds. You're fabulous. This is great. I will, until we geek again, I will say, be kind, be brave, be brilliant. Cheerio.